Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We warmly welcome you to Yokoten again. Asi, I saw your hand as before your face.
Yeah. I was just
What's
trying to
up?
unmute myself. I was just trying to unmute myself. You saw it. I thought you didn't
Okay.
see it. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good evening, Yasas. How is it going?
Doing good. I like the color of your t-shirt. It matches our
Yeah.
background.
Absolutely. It's purposefully I have worn this. Yeah, it's yellow and blue everywhere. So it's our colors. Actually, three colors.
Of course, of course. Cool. So how has it been, Asi? It's been a while.
Yeah, I was actually not physically well last couple of days. I was sick, yes, but slowly
I think we are facing some issue
on
with
top of
your
that, it's
connection.
raining outside here. Midst of these challenges, yeah, I said midst of all these challenges, we are connected and we are here to serve and add value.
Definitely. So, Asi, without any delay, let's jump on to today's topic. And
Sure.
we've been working with founders, startups for some time now, right? For a couple of years. And one thing
Yes.
that came out quite interesting very recently was this is not really like an experienced founder, but
Mm.
she was kind of having an idea and she was kind of sounding it off, saying, "This is something I want to start my business on." And what do you
Yes.
think? So, one of the first question I asked her was how comfortable she was with that idea, because the idea she had was from a completely different industry. And
Mm.
today, because of this AI blue boom and a lot of tech things happening, she was trying to invest into
Correct.
something that is AI based, but she comes from a completely
Okay.
different industry. So I took a moment and I asked her, like, how well do you know this industry? And
Mm-hmm.
her point was, I've got the right people, so they know about this business quite well, so I'm going to work with them,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. I think when you talk about a startup, you need to look at getting a diverse team of people from various backgrounds who can really drive your idea and your business.
Correct.
However, I asked her how passionate or how comfortable are you with this idea,
Mm-hmm.
and she honestly said, I have no clue. I'm not sure. So this took me back to some examples, Asi, that I have heard, read, and which both of us talk most of the time when we meet startup founders. And I thought, let's talk about this topic. And this is about
Mm-hmm.
finding what your startup idea should be and where the inspiration should come from first. So to bring it to the discussion, Asi, I think one of the common things we hear from people, and I've seen this even from some of the Y Combinator investors,
Mm-hmm.
they talk about this in one of the webinars. They say a lot of people get bored in their current
Yes.
jobs, especially if you're doing your job, the same thing, over and over and over and over for years. And that boredom kind of pushes people to look at something different. I think you've done it, I've done it. We've kind of moved out when we feel bored, when we feel tired. We've been doing the same thing over and over.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. However, the important point that took me also some time to realize was, when you have done something over and over, see,
Mm-hmm.
you would possibly know everything possible about that job,
Mm.
right? You've gone through it over and over. You've tried different ways of doing it. You've tried probably shortcuts. You will probably be an expert in what you're doing.
Mm.
So, one of the important points I think a startup founder should look at is if they have that level of expertise, or or if they have access to such expertise. Then if they don't have the expertise, they should have access, and if they have access, they should spend some time with such expertise to
Mm.
really figure out how they can really improve that process, or how can
Mm.
they solve a problem that is available in that situation. That is the best place to start your startup, because if you are not comfortable, if you're looking at something totally new you have no clue about, you're not going to be passionate, you're not going to be able to add value, you're not going to be able to look at it in the same way an experienced person will look at.
Mm.
So this is the point I want to bring in today, Asi, and I'll talk about some examples and how this experience adds value into your startup or your business. Do you have anything to add, Asi, before I move on?
Yes, yes, I actually like the fact that you brought a very good and a valid point. Now, when people start doing the same thing constantly, continuously, obviously they will get bored, right, of the activity. Uh, in certain instance, obviously, if it is a founder, no choice, they will have to go through that process. And the point that you highlighted is, now this actually struck me. You said you become an expert even though you get bored of that process. I believe that's I too agree with you. I also believe that that's where when you become an expert, that's where you will have to invest a lot of time and energy, and also the resources for you to master that, right? So expertise means like you have in a way mastered that activity, that skill. So it's a good place to start then.
Exactly, exactly. So I'll bring a very current example the two of us have been talking about, right? There's this government process, unfortunately,
Ah,
that you go through every month,
yes,
right?
yes, yes.
You need to go into a particular government department. And by now, you and I have visited that place quite a number of times to do
Yes,
the same thing. And over the last 4 years, that process has still remained the same. It's still manual,
correct,
and
correct.
you and I now have experience. Now we are not experts in it. Neither
Yes.
do we have worked there. But in that particular process, both of us have experienced it so much that we know where the bottlenecks are.
Yes.
That is a good place. That is a starting point for us to really look at, okay, how do we improve this process, because we know these bottlenecks, we know that it's stuck at various places, and that is really a good starting point for us to start working. We
Mm.
lost you for a moment, Asi, but I continue talking about
Yeah.
how we can probably add value if we are thinking from maybe a technology process, or maybe even streamlining the process, or figuring out, in fact both of us even discussed how we can probably even use like image recognition and do
Mm.
certain mapping, and how we can reduce that process, how we can cut down a particular step. And we found out that there was already one part of it that was digitally possible, which even the government organization didn't know,
Correct.
right? And
Correct.
that saved your time by number of hours, just by finding out that you can do a particular part online.
Yeah.
It just saved your time. So coming back to the topic, Kazi, I think when somebody says they're really bored, or they're tired of doing the same thing, that is actually an opportunity to grow. That is actually an opportunity to change what they've been doing over and over, and they might be better
Mm.
at coming up with a new idea, a new concept,
Mm.
or a
Correct.
new way of doing things. Now, taking some examples which are known examples,
Mm.
Canva. I mean, most of us today use Canva, and Canva, you don't need any graphic skills. Have you ever used Photoshop, Pasi?
Uh, Earlier, I used to use, but now I'm a more or less CapCut and Canva guy.
Yeah. So same here. I self-learned Photoshop, but if you can go back to the time you learned this software and how long it took you to even get to do certain things on those software, tool like Photoshop would take you considerable time. If you use
Mm.
Adobe Premiere for video editing, it will take you considerable time. You'll make a lot of
True.
mistakes, and and sometimes in that process, if you don't like it, you will even give up using the tool,
True.
right? But if you look at, like you rightly said, CapCut or Canva, it's so user friendly that you don't need to really think much. It's just drag and drop, and you can try out things, and within couple of minutes you'll get your first thing sorted,
Exactly.
right? Now the whole idea for that came from a lady who was a Photoshop teacher. She was training her students on Photoshop, and she was thinking
Oh.
like, what if this is, if there's an easier way, can't we edit in an easier way? And
Hmm.
that started her to think about Canva as a solution. So she was an expert in one thing, and she
Wow.
realized the bottleneck, how many people were
Yes.
suffering to get
Yes.
onboarded and learn that. And she started creating something totally new. So
Hmm.
that's one classic example. Another example of how your knowledge or expertise can add value to your business or your startup is Instagram. So the Instagram founder, before it was acquired by Meta or Facebook, he had actually the first software was to have a photo tagging solution where you check in with your photographs. Remember, we had Foursquare where you can
Yes.
in, and even Facebook had a check-in option some time ago. You check in at places. So it started with that. But then what happened was, how did he get into photography was he had studied photography at a very, very early stage,
Hmm.
and this is manual photography. He had invested on a very expensive camera and gone to his professor, and the professor had said, "No, I'm going to lock this camera for several weeks, and you are going to use this low quality plastic camera." And that's what was given to him. Now, in that
Yeah.
process, he had learned to remember the days we had the negatives and you had to develop a photograph and print it.
Oh my
So
God. Yes. Yes.
he had learned how to use different chemicals to make photographs and develop it, and how different chemicals would give different effects and filters on
Filters.
photo. Yeah. So now this background was there in him. And what happened was, when he in the early stages of Insta, he gave his wife to use the app when she was on travel, and she had said, "I'm not going to use this." And he asked, "Why?" "No, because I'm not good like you and your friends in taking photographs, so I'm not going to use this
Mhm.
app ever." And that had
Mhm.
led him to think, okay, what if there's a filter kind of thing which is on the app that can beautify photographs, so that even the worst possible photographer or person who takes a photo can really create something awesome. And that was the key differentiation
Yeah.
of Insta even to today, Pratik. So if you really
Yes.
look at it, everyone copied it. TikTok to all software out there now uses filters and augmented reality and stuff like that. But it came from an expert, came
Yes.
from someone who really knew something and brought it into application. One more example before we move on. Steve Jobs. Now,
Mm.
while Steve Jobs was a student, he had attended a calligraphy class. Calligraphy is an
Oh.
art of
Okay.
writing
Yes.
things in
Fonts.
like Japanese writings and all. So you need to kind of try to write things in a very, very nice way using
Yes.
sometimes brushes. Now, why he learned calligraphy, he didn't know himself. However, when the Apple Macintosh was created,
Mm-hmm.
one of the thoughts that came to his mind is, what if we can have different types of typing with
Mm.
lovely writing, which was
Mm.
the invention of fonts.
Mm.
So probably if we didn't have calligraphy experience, fonts
Yes.
wouldn't have probably been invented so fast, or probably fonts wouldn't have been part of the general word processing and operating systems. So it's
True.
a classic example of how your expertise comes into a startup environment. So we brought two things. One is you have experience, you've been in a process for years, and you've gone through the pain, so you know it well. Second is you experience something that is good enough that can give you an idea to funnel your startup, or basically fuel your startup, so you can come up with something new. um, Anything else you want to add, anything you want to fill
Yes.
in?
Yes. Yes. I truly like the fact that anyone can learn anything, right? For the simple reason, let's say, I mean, if you talk to, now we both of us, we work with a lot of founders as well as youth, and when we work with youth, uh, one of the key areas and elements that they highlight, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to have my own business. Obviously it's a good thought, we are not denying it, it's a good thought. However, when you have that thought, obviously you will have to go through that process, the step by step mechanism to gain that experience. Even if you don't know about a topic, go through that topic, be
Exactly.
gain the experience, become an expert, then start your business.
Exactly. That's a very very important point. As you know, there was another example. I can't remember the exact product or the person, but this was an example given by a Y Combinator investor, where he said like one of their startup ideas came from a student who went to work with I think his mom or aunt in a dental, and then
Mm,
he realized as an intern, there's a lot of processing of these insurance documents and documentation, which was
mm,
very manual. And he
yeah.
thought, why can't I build something that can take away this manual process? And he started
Mhm,
studying it, created it, and then he had a niche that works with all the dental dentists and dental clinics out there in the US. So
mm,
one thing that we should really support is whilst youngsters want to jump on this entrepreneurship bandwagon, and we always said it's not because of the wrong reasons, like I want to be my boss, I want to work when I want to sleep when I want, not for those reasons, which is
yeah,
not,
yeah.
which is actually a myth. If you want to really
It's
succeed, there's
true.
no
Probably
easy
we
way.
can talk about that fact on another Yokoten
Another
session.
Yokoten, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's a myth, because you can't really be comfortable if you want to be successful. But the important fact is try to get experience. Go and learn something, experience something, especially if you come from a different industry. Example, like a tech guy working in a dental is going to look at things in a different way,
Different way.
right? If you're an artist who works in a tech, or if you're a engineer who's working in probably a different industry, the way you look at a problem is going to be different.
Mm,
And if you learn more and you understand that process, if you understand that business, you will see something that others will not see. And I think for us to wind up today, Asi, that's the message we should leave. Don't feel you're bored or you've done enough. If you're doing the same thing for a long time, maybe you might be the next founder of a big startup, because you'll find something that you have expertise in, that you know that's different but others can't be. Or if you really want to start something, find something that you are good at, that you have experience and you can get expertise from,
mm,
and work on that. But do not go into entrepreneurship and try to start up entrepreneurship with something that you're not comfortable with, because you won't be passionate, you will
true.
not have an idea. But unless you really want to learn, you and I at the moment we are working on two new projects where we didn't have expertise. We took about a
Mm,
year to understand those businesses, and
yeah. And
now
we are still
we're
learning
still not
about it.
experts. Yeah, we are still not experts, right?
Yeah.
But we are working with experts, and we have the passion because now we understand something about it that allows us to really work on this. So with that message, Jasi, I think that's all I have to say. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Just one point, yes, as probably you might have the passion, or maybe you don't have the passion. Whether you have it or not, if you are in this journey, number one, gain the experience. If you are bored, that can be an opportunity for a business venture. Third point is connect with the right expertise who can support you in this process. So that's the three areas that I wanted to highlight, yes.
Very well wrapped up, Azi. Very well. I think I could have done it better. So, ladies and gentlemen, all our viewers who are connected, with that, we end today's session of Yokoten. And we hope you'll connect with us for future Yokoten sessions. Share these videos, send us your messages. If you have any queries, let us know. If you disagree with us, let us know in the comments. This is an open discussion. With that, we'll end today's Yokoten session. Signing off, I'm Yasas.
And I'm Masi. See you next week, same time.
See you.